Welcome back to the Big Screen Bols podcast, where you have myself, Caleb Kindle, and the Kali Ma worshippers themselves, Christian McCrite and Weston. Everybody, welcome back to the podcast.
I'm not sure if that is particularly what I worship. That seems pretty the opposite.
Don't let them fool you, folks. He
I'll
pulls
steal your heart, baby.
stealing hearts and then breaks them right afterwards.
Yes.
Lights them on fire.
Kalima. Super iconic scene.
That's like one of the most iconic scenes, I feel like, in just general media history.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How many, it's iconic when they make Family Guy spoofs of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much when you know you've made something of worth value.
Yeah. We made it in the big leagues, boys. Family Guy's making fun of us.
20 years later.
Yeah.
That's a George Lucas just like welcomes it so much too. Like nobody ever had like the rights to spoof anything that Star Wars other than Family Guy, just because George Lucas says, you know what? I'm going to give you a shot, Seth.
Pretty much the only other person was Spaceballs.
Yep. Yeah.
Because he actually
Classic.
worked with him. Trying to remember his name right now.
That one guy.
One guy.
Yeah, go this guy.
I know Rick and Morty did a lightsaber episode as well too, but I think I don't know if that was any. There's no correlation, I don't think, or no connection piece there. I don't think, other than just wrote him a check and was able to do it. So
Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks. There we go.
Google. Gotta love it.
So for
Tell
those of
listens to me.
you,
Puts all of it to an AI, and then you start your own podcast to
That's
weed me
right.
out. I know what you're doing, ladies and gentlemen.
I left my water bottle all the way over there. Could you hand me my water bottle? Thank
Sure.
you.
This is the most unorganized podcast setup we've ever done.
No, it's fun. It's casual. It's fun, and that's what we're all about. So.
You think we're here to have fun?
For those of you who have not picked up on the hint, like about 3 minutes ago, we are talking about the new Indiana Jones movie.
Well, it was actually about 2 minutes ago, 2 minutes, 30 seconds ago.
I don't want to hear it.
Yes, but we were talking
I will
about the
stop
new...
this podcast right now.
Pulls a grenade out of his pocket, just pulls the pin. Oh, gosh.
If you question me ever again, just like pull you aside behind after the episode's over.
No, we're not that serious, folks. We're pretty stupid. At least I am. I won't speak for Weston.
Pretty accurate.
But yeah, we're going to be talking about Indiana Jones and specifically the newest one that came out, Dial of Destiny.
That's right. So give us some info on how it's done, like at the box office and things of that nature.
Yeah, so again, all movies so far this summer, and again, we're in the summer of 2023 right now, so movies so far box office wise have not been doing very well. So if you know the timeline here, we've got Indiana Jones coming out, we have The Flash coming out, we have the new Barbie movie coming out as well too.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer's coming out here within the next couple weeks. So there's a lot of good movies I've wanted to watch that have came out pretty quick. Transformers, throw that into the mix as well.
Yeah.
All of this is all coming at the same time. So I think you're limiting people how much they can watch because you're throwing so much content out there. But yeah, so far, this is actually the lowest rated Indiana Jones movie from Rotten Tomatoes to date.
Really?
It is a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
Nice.
I was going to say, like, everything else, like, made it in the high 70s, if not, like, 90s, like a couple of the first ones.
Even the fourth one, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I think, got a 77.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's what I was thinking, too. I was like, holy cow. I was like...
It turns out a lot of people actually liked it.
Standards
All right.
were not as high back then.
Yeah. That's like, to be honest, I thought it was going to be hard for them to make this new one because of that movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being kind of as difficult it was. I thought it was like, at that point, it was like, okay, you're done, Harrison Ford. Like, let's let you retire, be a grandpa in some other movies going down the line. But
And he's like, no, I like the money.
Is there a reason you made this new Indiana Jones movie? Yeah, for money. The Mr. Krabs scene.
yeah. Money. First, we tried burying it, shredding it, and burning it. But
That's what it's doing right now. Box office, I don't have an exact total. I think it just made 60 million locally and then 70 million worldwide. So not too bad. At the same time, movies cost a lot of money to do nowadays just because of all the special effects. And then, of course, actors need to get the bank too. So
paying Harrison Ford.
yeah, paying literally him and then everybody else.
Which I don't know his cut of the whole deal. I should honestly, that's probably a better thing I need to start doing for the future. To start like diving into more and just finding Harrison Ford. How much money do you make before taxes?
Well, I definitely know he cares more about this role than he ever did Han Solo.
Oh,
Yeah, of course.
And you can tell because like he didn't appear. I mean, like not to my knowledge, he didn't appear like on a lot of like interviews and stuff for like The Force Awakens and stuff like that. Like, hey, go watch The Force Awakens like that. He didn't promote it as much, but he does self promote this movie quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
He actually is the main character in this movie. Like
That's true.
Luke is not Luke is the main character within the Star Wars franchise, and Leia, and he's kind of like he's a main character, but not like the main character. So it's
Right.
This is like it's just him.
Yeah. That's fair. That's definitely fair. But now that we've gone into some of the numbers with that stuff, why don't we get into just kind of a surface level, spoiler free thoughts?
Yeah.
And then we'll give our rating of the movie, and then we'll kind of go into spoilers about the movie.
For all you crazy cats out there that watch the podcast before you watch the movie, you gotta love you though.
That's right.
You crazy folks, you.
That was really loud on the mic.
Oh really? Oh gosh.
No,
wow.
it was good.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it. I was just like, oh, dang, the quality of that was kind of nice. Anyways,
I mean, if I'm iffy on a movie, if I'm not sure I want to watch it, I'll listen to the podcast and then I'll decide from there.
see, there we go. Look at that. And we didn't even ask him to say that. Look at that. Advertising.
So how much more on my check do I get?
Oh, shh, we'll talk about that later.
Add extra 50 cents on there.
I'll take it.
You'll get your money when you fix this damn door.
Spider-Man reference.
That's right, Spider-Man. Anyways, Indiana Jones. Weston, let's start with you. Surface level, just thoughts of overall what you thought about the movie.
So I thought it was a pretty good watch, especially as a theater experience, which is something that Harrison Ford has gone on, and he's talked a lot about that as like just the theater experience, getting back into the theater and just watching something with a bunch of strangers that you can't see in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun time.
I love sitting in a dark room with a bunch of random people watching something that
That's why I always bring night vision with me. Why is he eating popcorn with only 3 fingers?
That's funny.
But,
No,
yeah.
it's crazy thing about movie theater. Sorry to cut you off there, but
You're
like
good.
going to the Alamo now, just watching how untech savvy people are in this world now. I think it's the last 3 times in a row. I'm just like, somebody's been in my seat, and I'm like, "Hey, buddy, like, is everything okay?
Hey,
you know how
buddy,
this, you
can
know how this
you
works?"
read?
Oh, sorry, this is the first time I've ever been to a movie theater like the Alamo before we have assigned seats. Okay.
Did your teachers not assign you seats when you were in school back in the 1940s?
Most theaters have assigned seating.
So
See, there's this piece of paper that has a number on it, and you match this number with that number.
they're they get a little irritated as well too, but at the same time, it's like, okay, this is the price you have to pay to kick your feet up and watch a movie.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
You make that trade 9 times out of 10.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Continue. Sorry, Weston.
Anyway, yeah, so I thought it was a pretty good movie. I like even though Harrison Ford is getting up there, he's still such a powerhouse as an action kind of actor, and I like that they brought it back to the roots of Indiana Jones fighting Nazis. I mean, what more can you ask for in an Indiana Jones movie?
Aliens. You could ask for aliens and Russians.
and a cult.
Yeah, basically.
It's like the Nazis are over. What are we gonna do now? I got it. Russians and aliens.
And aliens. Oh,
That was back when all the ancient alien stuff was so popular too.
that's right.
When
Yeah,
Crystal Skull was so popular.
Aliens.
that's right.
like,
Aliens.
Everything had to be aliens back then.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure our high school teacher said that aliens built the pyramids. Of course, I don't think he was being serious, but he told us that in class. He was like, "Oh yeah, it was definitely built by aliens."
Yeah, I mean the aliens versus predators explain that.
Oh, exactly. Dude, it's based on a true story, bro.
That's what all movies are based on, true stories, except for the ones that say they're based on true
Exactly. Yeah,
stories.
basically. That's funny.
But yeah, my overall thoughts of it, at least, again, it's kind of twisty and turny in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
where like the kind of the plot changes and like different aspects of it change, which I really like that a lot because like
Yeah.
I'm always got to be thinking. It always makes you pay attention. And like in
Mhm.
the world of TikTok and all that out there, it's good to have like a movie like that was able just to grab my attention continuously.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
No,
Even though
there's
we all have
constantly something going
Yep.
on, even if it was slower, like the scenes on like the boats and stuff, where
Yeah.
it's like heartfelt moments, like those grasp you in. They give like the emotional pull, and then the rest of it is like action or like just
Classic,
Indiana
yeah, just
Jones.
classic, classy Indiana Jones.
exactly. And I think as well too on the action side of things, I feel like the action was very fitting.
hmm
It wasn't like we put some I don't know how old he is, like 70s.
Yeah,
think-
like I think he's pushing 80s,
I'm
90s.
pretty sure he might actually be like 80.
Golly. Well, again, they don't make him do too many crazy stuff. It's like, all right, he's gonna break something. You better get him down.
Yeah, like the Star Wars.
Where he broke a leg. He was in the interview and he showed the toy figure and he's like, it's like, how exactly did you break your leg? He takes the toy figure and goes, breaks the leg off.
Yeah, they're not like, it's not like Sylvester Stallone or like all these other getting older actors where they're doing like these intense fight
Yeah.
scenes and stuff. He's
Right.
just doing like the classic Indiana Jones, like nothing more than he was doing in the 70s, 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
A handful of punches and some
Gun,
gun play and
gunslinging,
some whip
whips.
play.
Yeah.
And every now and then you got to like run out of the way of something. That's pretty
Mhm.
much it. So, but it's entertaining.
It is
Uh,
entertaining.
Yeah.
That's a good part.
And then you see it all in the trailers, everybody as well too. But like, I like how like the CGI I thought was really good to de-age him.
Yep.
It was
They
better than
did
I
a
was
good
expecting.
job.
It was really I thought it was better than like what Star Wars had done with like
Oh, yeah,
aging
Grand
Anakin.
Moff and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were a couple moments where like I felt like there were a couple moments where I felt like it was noticeable. But then there were a couple moments where I legitimately forgot that they de-aged him. And so but that's a good thing.
yeah,
Like
that's
and,
awesome.
and I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely the kind of facial expressions he would make. And like he doesn't make it as much of those as an older person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But like when they did that, I was like, yeah, this works. But you could tell like his voice sounded
Yeah.
older. But so that part kind of didn't match up as well. But it was still like versus a lot of other de-aging stuff we've seen. Like this is probably the best,
This is
I've seen it.
definitely the best that's come
Yeah.
out.
much better than Star Wars with Grand Moff Tarkin, much better than Luke Skywalker and the Mandalorian.
Yeah, Princess Leia.
Yeah. And so it was actually, I think, pretty well done.
I think so too. That was good. I'm trying to think of just some more general stuff. Just a good movie. All around good movie. Liked it. Christian,
All right.
want to hit into it?
I would say this is a solid movie. This is a solid movie. It's a solid Indiana Jones movie. It's not my favorite of all the films, and I'll get into more why whenever we get into spoiler aspects.
Yeah.
But they did a good job on this on the CGI. The soundtrack is still good. I don't feel like the soundtrack in this movie is as strong as some of the others. The pacing for me, like a bit of it did throw me off a little bit. There was a part within like the first half, or I would say probably the middle act, where it started to drag just a little bit. Where I'm like, okay, like I want to see what the dial does. I want to see I want to see some stuff happening. And they take more time away in this movie to kind of gear more towards conversations about his life,
Mhm.
about his legacy, his life, his relationships with people. And so I do think that is good. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. But overall, I think this is a solid movie. You should go watch it. Obviously, it's not doing as great as it should be in the box office. And I wonder if things like this, where like we've been thrown great content at us so much, so often, that I wonder if we're even more nowadays becoming more picky and choosy with like what we choose to go watch or spend time doing.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's a busy world. And whenever you have like 5 or 6 blockbuster movies coming out in like a month, like it's kind of hard to finagle that with all that time. And then all of a sudden, the more that time goes on that you don't see it the first few weekends, then it kind of, you almost start to lose your motivation towards it. So I wonder if that plays an aspect, but it is a solid movie. It's got solid action. It's still good. Great characters. Harrison Ford still kills it. I love the villain. Love Mads Mikkelsen in pretty much
Oh, yeah.
anything he does.
Mhm.
I didn't care as much for the goddaughter or the kid as
Yeah.
much, but that's just a personal thing. But overall, it is a fairly satisfying conclusion to what we have as like the Indiana Jones series. So
Awesome. I think with all that being said, time to actually open up this can of worms and get into all the nitty gritty. So,
Yeah.
if you guys haven't watched the movie, this is kind of the time where you can pause the podcast, come back to it after you watch it, or if you want to continue to go through it, no problem at all.
spoiler alert from here on out. This is all spoiler territory.
And again, like Christian said, it's not doing great in the box office, and this is a movie that deserves to do good. So,
Yeah.
I think you should watch it anyway. And I'm just saying that I'm not pointing any fingers or anything at anybody, but maybe you should watch it. Maybe you're the reason why.
If anything,
I was pointing fingers.
go get a matinee nap in.
There you go.
Just buy a ticket, go in, and have a nap.
There you go.
Ticket
Just go
sales or
support your
ticket
thinkers.
sales.
There you go. There you go. Here, take my money so I can sleep in your chair.
It's pretty comfortable at the Alamo.
Mattress firm's like, dang it, I didn't know that people would pay to do that.
Oh, that's funny. But spoiler aspects of the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
is- go ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was neat. Just the whole entire, we're bringing it back to, it's not aliens, of course. It's an ancient historical figure that's supposed to be probably the smartest inventor in the world,
Yeah.
inventor in history. So I like that it was brought to that situation.
Yeah, I think it's fresh to the Indiana Jones. Like, usually they're looking for artifacts that are people long dead
Yeah.
and religious.
Yes, that's a very important one because definitely all the first 4 movies, they're all religious artifacts, aren't they? Because we have the Ark,
Mhm.
and then we have the stones. Cannot remember the name of the stones at this
I feel
very
like
moment.
they're called like the Amari stones or
Something like that.
Yeah.
Was that-
And then the Holy Grail, and then even the Crystal Skull was seen as a religious type thing to like
ancient
Aztecs.
Mayan
Yes.
Aztecs.
yeah. So in a sense, it was still kind of religious,
Yep.
but not like
For the modern setting, it's just kind of like aliens.
yeah,
Yeah.
But
aliens, bro.
for those groups, it was a somewhat religious
Yeah.
artifact.
And this one is not. This one
It's
deals with like a completely different. It deals with the concept of time, but it's more mathematically based.
Yep.
it's science.
That's right, science. And so they spend this whole movie, for those of you who haven't seen it and decide to listen to the spoiler parts. Indiana Jones is old, and
He's getting ready to retire.
that's right. The movie kind of
Mhm.
opens up with them going back to when the Nazis were still around, and he's going with his friends. I don't understand what his name is. I don't think I caught it quite well when I watched it,
Mhm.
but it was like Balazar, something like that.
Yeah.
And so he has his friend, and they're looking for this lance that turns out to be like a fake. Like it turns out, yeah, it's like
But
this
it's the
holy
lance
relic.
that pierced Jesus' side when he was on the cross.
Yes.
That's what they're all fighting for, and they think the Nazis think it has magical properties.
Yeah. And it turns out it's a fake. And it kind of introduces those two and their relationship. It also introduces the scientist Schmidt, who at the time is working for the Nazis, and he also knows that the lance is a fake. But he kind of talks about this thing called Archimedes' dial. I can't pronounce the full full name, but so and he believes it has powers, and everyone just kind of dismisses it. But that makes Indiana Jones' partner go crazy looking for this artifact.
Yeah.
So the whole plot of this movie is surrounded with them now, like it's years later, and his partner's daughter wants to help find this artifact, and then the scientist ends up working for the U.S. government because he's a physicist. He puts them on the moon.
Yep.
And so he's after the dial as well, and always has been.
And that's a pretty fresh concept as well too. It was like one of those deals where like, yeah, after World War II happened, Americans grabbed a lot of Nazi scientists and put them into our own situation, and they actually helped us
Yeah.
make the nuclear bomb at the end of the day too.
Mhm.
So
Go
that's
watch
kind of
Oppenheimer when it comes out.
yeah.
Oppenheimer's gonna be good.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be good.
But that was a fresh thing. Nobody really talked about it in history and stuff like that as well too. That's right. This was one thing I thought that was kind of neat. It was that this felt more of it was telling history that nobody ever talks about as much.
Mhm.
Like Archimedes was like, again, the greatest inventor of all time, debatably. Like he built somehow back in ancient world, he built mirrors that could deflect the sun's rays and catch boats on fire.
Which is insane to think about.
Like we can't even do that today. Like he's just sitting around with mirrors, just like it's a McDonald playhouse, just catching stuff on
Just
fire though.
Making death rays.
Yeah, it just meow, meow, meow. Yeah.
Like if you ever just look up a history book about it, like he was an absolute insane person.
Mhm.
Like obsessed with buoyancy, like they talk about in the movie.
Yeah.
And I thought it was neat that they showcased a person like this within this. So
Absolutely.
Yes.
I appreciated it. But
So, out of curiosity, I'm going to ask you this, Weston. What are some of your favorite things about the movie? All spoiler territory. Free reign.
Yeah, so I think probably one of my favorite aspects is just like Indiana, like it's one of his last hurrahs, basically, that he's forced into.
Yeah, basically.
yeah, he
did
doesn't want
not
anything to
wanna
do with
go.
it at all. Yeah.
No, he didn't want to go, but due to like the circumstances with the scientist henchmen, who are some of the dumbest henchmen I've ever seen
Pretty dumb.
in a movie, he's forced to go on this adventure with his goddaughter, so that he can clear his name. That she kind of also was an aspect, and that he's going to be framed for murder, which
Yeah.
is kind of crazy. But just seeing him put back on the leather jacket and the hat and the whip, he still really fits well into it.
Yeah.
And I like the beginning scene of him like teaching on the day that he does not care about, like, he's a crotchety old professor. He does not care that today is the moon landing day, like one of the biggest days in 1969.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're still coming to class.
Yeah. And then he makes a joke like, or to him, it's not a joke. It was like he asked, like, did anybody do the reading? And nobody said a word. And I was like, I remember those days.
Yeah.
I
In class, you're
remember
like,
doing that.
You
That's
were
right.
supposed to?
You were just hoping somebody else did it and would tell you about it. And then nobody answers. So he's like, all right, I guess I'll spoon feed it to you. He's like, this is
Yeah.
on the final.
Yeah.
And
Like,
I'm
just
like,
a classic
Yes.
professor.
Just classic college stuff. And while that was going on, I'm like, I understand.
Like-
I get it.
Like, coming from college, like the other two movies where he's a college professor, like he's like he's young, he's new, he's like really trying to get at home with these people.
Yeah.
And then now he's just like, Yeah, no, this new generation.
This sucks.
This sucks. And he's just trying to like in this movie he's um talking about ancient Greece and like how he loves Archimedes. Like he's one of his favorite people that he's always studied.
Yeah.
You never see that in the other movies, but
No.
it's cool that they brought it into this.
Yeah.
And so like he's just trying to spew his knowledge and love of this time frame, which is really like they did a lot of like stuff to set up future explanations.
Yes.
So that was kind of like a nice way to do it, like the movie, like showing some of the stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then like all the like a lot of the action scenes, especially in like the South America, like the Tut Tut Drive. That was probably one of my favorite sequences of them trying to keep up with the Nazi scientist, but also lose the drug cartel people.
Yeah. The drug cartel prince that was like in love
with the
with the
goddaughter
goddaughter.
who's like, I just used you for money.
Right, yeah. So her whole spiel is like she wants to get artifacts to get herself
Sell
out of
on a
debt.
black market.
Which I wasn't a big fan of that, really.
I wasn't either. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of like it. What I've heard was that it was kind of like it made Indiana Jones remember kind of his character development in the Temple of Doom, where he starts off, he's like, fortune and glory, fortune and glory. That's what she wants.
Yeah.
She doesn't really care about like she remembers all this stuff her dad taught her about. She is still interested, but she's about the money and the fame
Yes.
and like getting out of these debts so then she can make more money.
Yeah.
But it has a big gambling issue, at least. Like, I don't know. I just felt like that's.
It was like a crutch for sure on her character
Yeah.
to then develop her into like Indiana Jones, where she's now about the history and
Yeah.
the truth and all that about the history.
I didn't much care for the kid that was with her. I'm not even kidding. This is 100% true. I did not know what the kid's name was until the final 20 minutes of the movie. I'm dead serious because I was thinking the whole time, like, there's a scene later on where the kid gets captured and then Indiana Jones is trying to find his goddaughter and he tells her I'm sitting here thinking, what is he gonna say? Like, what's his name? And so I was like, now I get to actually find out here near the end of the movie. And I'm expecting him to say like they got the kid, but he actually says his name. He's like, they have Teddy, and I'm like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah, his name is Teddy.
oh yeah. And I totally forgot. So I felt like he was a little bit of he had some interesting moments, but I think he was more of a throwaway character. He was like a distraction for some of the Nazi guys, and he flew the plane at the like he was basically like a plot device used to try to get them back home. And so he's not a bad character. It just kind of seems like it was nearly just a plot device, pretty much.
Yeah, he's no short round.
No, he's no short round. Short round's the GOAT. I don't care what anybody says. He should have been in this movie.
True.
Dude, short round is awesome. He's like, oh, they're walking through that thing in the Temple of Doom, and he's like, it sounds like we are stepping on a bunch of cookies. And they look down and it's all these bugs. He's like, that's no cookie, Dr. Jones. Short round's the GOAT.
Absolutely. I do like that they were able to bring some like old characters and actors back, like Solly.
I did like
Solly's
that.
one of my favorite characters
Yeah.
of all time. And then like the ending was just a beautiful moment when Marion comes back and they recreate the kissing scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Just very wholesome and sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was kind of scared that they weren't gonna bring her back.
Yeah.
Because they explained like why Mutt's not in the movie.
Yeah.
But like they had a picture of her, so I was like, she's got to be in here. And then they like puts the rock, like the magnet over. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, what's going on?
Yeah.
And it was really sad, but it did have a good ending. Very sweet ending. What are some things you liked about the movie, Kindle?
Yeah, I was going to talk about kind of bringing up some of the past stuff within all of this coming forward. You could tell like this was really the last one. Like you could tell like Crystal Skull, it was one of those things where it's like, this should be the last one. Unless we make a whole bunch more money on this, then we'll do a couple more. Like this one was like, okay, this is it. This is the last installment of the whole entire franchise. We're gonna bring it all back to show some fan service.
Yeah.
Again, bringing in Sully, bringing in. I think that just like shows like Indiana Jones' life.
Yeah.
That was a big piece of it. Was just him looking back and seeing what he's done in his life and all of his friends that he meets along the way and just help him out. It's like this is why we don't. Not everything's about money because
It's
we're
about
seeing how.
the friends you made along the way.
That's right.
Yeah, well, it's like the friends that she made or whatever else were now chasing them and causing more issues and hiccups. Where his friends were like selfless and, oh sure, let's go jump on a boat and go out in the middle of the
Yeah.
ocean and fight some eels.
And find some rock at the bottom of
Yeah.
the ship. Sure, let's go do it.
Again, I like the whole entire concept of. I thought things were picking up, going pretty good for the most part of it. It didn't seem like anything really took a long time. You said it dragged a little bit. I didn't see as much where it dragged. You'll probably talk about it, and I'll probably agree to it. But I just felt like this was really good at catching that attention. The whole entire parade sequence was pretty awesome. I thought too.
I love
it
it,
was a
yeah.
great action like chase sequence showing like kind of like Indiana Jones chooses the old ways of like riding a horse
Yeah.
through it, and then like the henchman chooses like the modern like motorcycle, and Indiana Jones still
He still gets away.
gets out of it using his old faithfuls basically.
Yeah, his old faithful's his wit. And he finally gets on the subway and says, yeah, I guess these are faster.
Yeah, running a horse to the subway. Like,
Yeah.
that was It was a cool scene. Look, a lot of cool action scenes within all this. Eel scene was pretty cool. I thought those
Yeah.
eels were.
The eels were intense. It was like water snakes basically.
He's like, they look like snakes. No, they don't. He's like freaking out about it.
But like the plot twists and stuff like that too. That was, I thought, again, I talked about it in the spoiler free part, but bringing it back up, like, oh, we're going to go back to Nazi Germany on this date so we can defeat the Fuhrer, or I can kill the Fuhrer, and he won't be able to make. He won't be able to make the mistakes. I've learned from his mistakes that he's made throughout history, and all of this, and then it turns into, oh, you guys didn't take into consideration for this and this.
The continental drift.
Yep.
You wouldn't have known about it.
That's right, because it wouldn't have happened for another. It just happens incrementally over time.
Yep.
Yeah. But it turns out it was a trap the whole time.
Yeah, he did know about it.
Yeah.
He thought about it.
That's right.
He didn't care.
Which is how he could
That was pretty cool.
learn more knowledge. So that was cool. That scene was pretty sweet as well too. You're just watching the Romans and the Syracusians duking it out. Planes flying above them, just I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm gonna start shooting. Da, 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 da.
So for those of you, for those of you who don't know, if you're listening to this spoiler aspect and haven't seen the movie, the dial is supposed to be something that manipulates, or not. It doesn't manipulate. It gives you a location and a time to find fissures in time, basically like little spots where there's capability for time travel. I don't know how he figured it
like
out.
Warp holes or something.
Some sort of wormhole of sorts.
They said it very technically and very scientifically in the movie, and it made sense for somebody as simple as me.
And so the German scientist is after this dial because he wants to, as he said, he wants to kill Adolf Hitler so he can take over and not make the same mistakes. Obviously, Indiana Jones wants to stop him from doing that, and so their plan is to get a plane and fly into the wormhole and then pop out on the other side and be in Sicily in like 1939 or something like that.
The day before
something.
The day before Hitler invades Poland.
Right. So they get to this big old portal, and all of a sudden, Indiana Jones starts cracking up laughing, and he like figures it out and says, "Wait a minute," because he sees like these objects kind of moving around on the floor that were just moving in opposite directions, and he was like, he's like, "Wait a minute." He didn't account for continental drift, and he was like, "I don't know where we're headed, but it's not 1939." And so then all of a sudden, the scientist gets scared at the very last moment where he's like, "Okay, abort, turn around," but it's too late. They get sucked into the wormhole, and all of a sudden they're flying over all these ships and stuff. and then everybody in the city that's being bombarded with stuff and all the people on the boats think that it's a dragon that
Yeah.
works for the other side. So,
I
so
like how he's so confident when they go through. He's like, "We did it! Look, it's the city in 1939." It's like you can't see.
yeah, and then
It's
they get
still
closer and
pretty
they're like,
spec.
"Oh,
Oh, those are warships.
yeah,"
and
And they
old-
start-
Roman, yeah.
and they start throwing those giant spears into the plane.
Scorpions, yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
and yeah, from Game of Thrones. Uh, and so then that's pretty much like the goal of the scientists in that movie. But they end up meeting Archimedes, and I'll get into the rest of that in a second. But I just want to let you all know like this is the stuff that's going on in the film.
Yeah, and that was such a Peter moment as well too with Archimedes showing up.
Mhm.
That was the last thing I was going to say that was just really good. Like you really got to see. I guess this was one of the best things I thought with the co-star being involved in it. You got to see how different their lifestyles were,
Mhm.
and you got to see at the very end of it, it's like this is all I've ever wanted. I could learn from one of the greatest people in history, and I can teach him all of my ways and all this.
Mhm.
So I'm willing to stay back here and kind of work with them and talk with them and see how life was back then. Be the true historian that I always dreamt about being.
Yeah, he wanted to actually save the city and like all their save that generation of like
Yeah.
inhabitants and stuff.
Ideas and
Yeah,
Mhm.
and it doesn't happen.
Does not happen.
Yeah,
He's got a mean right hook.
That's right. The daughter can't stand the fact that he needs to be back in his own time. He doesn't need to mess anything up, and he needs to be where, like he
he
needs
can
to
be saved.
Yes,
Because he's been shot, so
Been
he's,
shot.
he's gonna die. They don't have the medicine or anything to deal with it at that time, but he doesn't care. He thinks this is the time he needs to be in,
yeah,
no matter what. And so, and like he's asking, he's like, what am I going back to?
yeah, my son's bad. And that was something I should mention as well too. You get to see how much sorrow he's in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With his wife
He's sad.
gone.
He's depressed. He
He's
doesn't
miserable,
know.
yeah.
He's miserable. He doesn't know. Like he doesn't think he's doing anything right. So he's like, I can do something here. He thinks like at that time people are gonna appreciate him and like he's gonna do something. But when he's actually really appreciated and he's done a whole lot for the people that
Yeah.
are in his life and he hasn't seen that yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was a great scene as well too, where you
Mhm.
get to see it's like, hey, like your life really did matter. Like that's
Yeah.
something like when I'm an old person, hopefully that's what comes up. It's like, hey, your life
Exactly.
really did matter.
Yeah.
Like see all these friends and stuff that we made along the way and their kids and
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about the money.
Not the fame or the fortune.
That's right.
unless we're talking about the movie industry.
There you go. Then it's about the money.
Yeah, it's about the money.
It's not always about the money, Spider-Man. It's about the Mets, baby, the Mets.
It's about the pictures of Spider-Man.
I really liked a lot of the CGI used in this movie, not just to DH Harrison Ford, but a lot of the CGI in general was really good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Especially when the planes get close to like the wormhole, and I'm like, that's freaky
Yeah.
and also super cool.
So that was real. That wasn't CGI. They actually made
Yeah,
wormholes.
no.
in
Yeah,
real
they
life.
actually went through time and met the real Archimedes and filmed it.
Harrison
So, I
Ford
don't know, that was
naturally
so funny
speaks
to me.
Latin or whatever he's speaking.
That's right.
It's just-
Whatever he's speaking. Oh, but it is great CGI. The action scenes are still good. You can definitely tell that since Harrison is aged, and he likes to do some things himself.
Mhm.
A lot of his stunts are done by somebody else, obviously. But in a lot of Indiana Jones films, there's a lot of like punching back and forth. There wasn't as much of that in this movie, especially with him.
Yep.
Most other people did all the punching and all the
Getting punched.
all the getting punched, all the reception of the punches. But it still felt like classic Indy every time he got socked in the jaw.
Yeah.
He's like, it's always a classic thing to watch him get punched for some reason.
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't hear no bell.
I didn't do no bill. But it does have a really like wholesome plot.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of elements that I think
Yep.
you touched on. That was talking about how this is one of the. I would say this and The Last Crusade are the two movies that really touch on Indiana Jones' personal life.
Yep.
Like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, like looking for the Ark of the Covenant was more like a mission that was given to him. And the Temple of Doom was a mission that he just happened upon. And then the Last Crusade had to do with him and his father. And the Crystal Skull, he didn't want to be a part of really at all. And this one actually had a lot of personal stake for him and a lot of personal involvement for him. So I was glad to see that.
It also kind of cracked me up too. They're like, "Oh yeah, Indiana, like that's where you're from." Like, I'm not from Indiana.
Oh, that's funny.
When I was a little kid, I thought he's from Indiana too.
He says in the Last Crusade that he nicknamed himself Indiana after his dog.
His dog, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
what I thought was so weird. It's like,
his dad laughed at him. It was like, "You named yourself after the dog?"
That's what we named the dog.
Yeah, and he's like, "I love that dog." But there's a lot of good things in this movie. Mads Mikkelsen as the villain is really good.
really good.
Very
He's
good,
very
solid
good.
performance. He plays a really good evil person. I don't know
He
why. He
does,
just kind of has
yeah.
that look.
Just some people have it.
he's
but-
he's that German look. He just,
I bet you he's like the nicest guy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
imagine.
I've heard a lot. Like usually villains are really nice people, like just solid, like
Yeah.
very like humble and very accommodating people.
Yeah. So he plays a great role in this movie. Hey, you stop over there.
hey,
I'm kidding. I'm just messing with him.
I won't
promise.
stop.
Mhm.
I'll never stop.
And they're
Breathing up all.
For you YouTube viewers.
there we go. After hours, baby. So there is a lot that I did like in this movie, and I do like all the the bringing back all the characters. Some things I didn't like about this movie. I think some of the colors are actually kind of off to me. Now, what do I mean about this? Okay, so the first part of the movie, like it's pretty dark.
Mhm.
They're chasing Nazis. They're on a train. The darkness actually works in its favor in the sense of it actually hides a little bit of the CGI for
Yep.
Harrison
That's
Ford's face.
exactly what I was thinking when I was watching it.
So I totally understand why they did that, and that I had no problem with
Mhm.
because you could still see everything just fine. There's like a really cool there's a shot in the trailer where they're on the train and there's like a bunch of mist, I think, and like someone's walking out of it. It looks like this epic scene in the trailer. It's
Oh, yeah.
not. It's
No.
just one of these generic bad guys that are walking through that gets walloped. But for the rest of the movie, it's very colored like a very tan like everything, like even like flags and like things that are other colors are almost the gradient or the hue on them is a little bit different, and it kind of has this grayish brown overtone through a lot of the movie, and that part kind of threw me for a loop because I was thinking about that halfway in the movie. I'm like, man, like this place out in a different part of the world looks a lot like even during the parade, like during the parade where he was on the horse. A lot of the colors overall, like the roads and the buildings, everything was just kind of like a tannish brown. And I get brown as kind of his color, but for a while it did throw me off where I'm like, there needs to be a little bit more color in this movie. That's just a minor detail. It's a very minor detail. Major details, didn't care for the goddaughter as much. Her personality. Couldn't remember the kid's name. That says enough for itself.
Teddy.
Teddy.
Don't you be hating on Teddy. He flies planes.
He flies planes. I think that was the first plane he ever flew, and he did it like perfectly,
Actual,
which is funny.
Yeah, and then, like that was the one moment that's like, okay, the actual pilot's in there. You think like you jump out of the cockpit and like let him take over.
Yeah, it was.
now he's got to prove himself.
That's right. Yeah, he gets in this plane to go help follow them because he's the plot device to get them back home after time traveling. And the other guy who owns the plane or something
It's just
is napping in the plane, and he wakes up halfway through the flight, and he's like, "What are you doing? This is my plane." And then he proceeds to do no more about it.
He just helps him fly.
Yeah, he just eventually which I thought was interesting. My fiance actually, like, I thought about this when it happened, but I forgot about it after a while. She actually said that there was a plot hole, which was when they're on the train and the scientist Schmidt is like having them like a gunpoint. He wants to
Yeah,
dial.
he's got the dial.
He gets whacked by this thing that comes on the side of the train, like
yeah.
this big old bar that sticks out. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking that guy's freaking dead.
Yeah,
like
he's
he
dead.
is like he's dead and a half.
Mhm.
Like he's probably no longer got a head, or at the very least, everything in his like shoulders up is
Broken.
broken. and
Not that
shattered.
German ingenuity, baby.
And he comes back with like a little scar on his face.
Like
and I'm like,
nothing.
bro, you're
Almost
freaking
nothing.
dead. How did you do that? I'm sitting here thinking the whole time, he's already used the dial. He got it back somehow. And it turns out, no, he just didn't take damage.
Yeah.
So whatever.
It's one of those soft train thingies that are there just to hit bad guys off the train. It was like a softened one.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's made out of those like those like soft spongy
Yeah.
sticks you use
What?
to hit.
What can I say, man? You rolled a 6.
Did you roll the nat 20 on that Constitution saving throw? Tell you what.
Not the dex to save the
But
get-
not the
to get
dexterity
around
save.
it, but
That's right. He got molly-walloped. So that was something that I didn't like as much. There was that part that dragged, and the part that I'm like, I don't have like a huge explanation for this other than the fact that from the moment they leave to go to Morocco and they kind of get like going through all like the criminal gangster club place, from there up until they dive and go find the artifact, I felt like was really slow. And that's just me personally. There was a really good heartfelt moment where he's talking to his god daughter about like his family,
Yeah.
and talks about Marion a little bit and his son, which I thought was really sad. Where
Yeah.
he's like, she asks him if you could use the dial to go back in time to change anything, what would it be? And he says, I would go back to tell my son not to enlist. And she's like, well, how would you do that? He's like, I'd tell him that he would die. And like, it doesn't really hit you until like a few seconds later where you're like, wow.
yeah.
And you can tell how much damage that did to him and how much
Mhm.
damage it did to his marriage.
Yeah.
And that was, and like he still wears the ring because he still loves her.
Yep.
And so it was really, that was a good moment among a period of time where I felt like, come on. I know that the Raiders of the Lost Ark, you spend the majority of the time without the Ark of the Covenant, but in this movie specifically, I wanted to see more of using the dial and not the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like the dial's split in two, so you can't really do anything with
With
it
half of it,
because
yeah.
it's a one-off item.
So, anyways, that's
Yeah.
just my personal.
So what would you rate it? We had 10 popcorn bowls out here on the table. Out of 10, what would you rate it?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's a solid movie. I like it. It's not one of my favorites. I'm gonna go probably a 7.8, maybe 7.9. I'm not quite giving it that 8 score because of these few minor things that do kind of bug me, and that plot hole bugs me a little bit. And some of the dialogue is strange. There's a lot of side characters that I just don't care for.
Yep.
I wanted to see more of Indiana Jones, and I felt like we got a good portion of it, but I felt like a lot of it was kind of pushed aside for these other characters I just don't care as much about. And they brought in a lot of the older characters, but only for minor situations, and I wish they would have had more to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with a 7.8. That's my official stamp.
I'll give it a crazy 8.
Crazy 8.
A crazy 8.
The hateful 8.
An 8.0. So yeah, good movie. Action might have not been as actiony enough for some of my likings.
Mhm.
Maybe why it's not a 10 at least. That, and then you just had a couple these little plot hole type pieces. Then you had a couple characters that maybe less written. Maybe acting goes into it as well too. But
Mhm.
between that, it's an 8.
I'd give it like around the 7.8, 7.9. Yeah, like I said, I think it's a great movie, especially to go watch in the theater. I think it's a good theater experience. I don't know if I'll like it as much like watching it at home. I'll still probably get it.
Yeah.
Just because
Oh,
it
yeah.
is still a really good movie to watch. I felt like they had to spoon feed some aspects of like why some characters can do a thing, like why he can fly a plane because he had a little model
Yeah.
thing while he was being a bouncer, and he's
Yeah.
asking all. I guess pilots come in all the time at that bar so that he can learn how to fly from them.
Yeah. Like offhand at like a desk.
Yeah.
So
So they
whatever.
kind of food spoon some of that aspect into it. I did like the CGI, but I felt like there was a very extended portion of them de-aging him when we could have gotten a little more like old indie,
I agree.
doing old indie stuff and like developing those other characters so you might appreciate them more.
Mhm.
But I mean I did like the CGI de-aging section. It was a fun,
Yeah.
very cool to see what our technology is doing. But yeah, I think like close to an 8, but not exactly an 8
All right.
Yeah, old indie stuff. Him taking 25 pills a day. Old indie installing new bars in the bathroom.
Indiana Jones figuring out how to work a thermostat.
Indiana Jones, amazed by colored television.
So now that we've rated this movie, if you are able to do so, I would like to see what your ranking of all of these movies would be, because I have mine right here.
Pull mine up here real quick.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Look at that.
Oh, I memorized mine.
You memorize? Okay. Well, I like looking at it. Okay.
All right, we're just gonna go off in a row then. So number 5, I think all of us are gonna agree on a number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal Skull.
Yep.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yep.
It's a
movie.
it's definitely it's one of the movies of all time.
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, weird story, weird.
Aliens is
know.
such a strange choice.
Yeah,
And that makes it even more confusing for this movie because, like he says in this movie, going back just a second. This is something else that I did not necessarily appreciate about the dial. He says, a few times in my life, I've seen things, but it's not about what you believe. It's about how hard you believe. I'm like, dude, you saw a UFO rise from the ground and fly away. Like you saw the Ark of the Covenant melt people's faces.
No, he had his eyes closed for that.
Oh, that's true. Well, he woke up and they were gone.
They were gone.
And then he saw another guy drink the wrong cup and freaking get
Shrivel.
aged to death. And then he got tortured by voodoo and saw this guy put this heart on fire and all this crazy stuff. So I don't really know what he believes. And that part's a little frustrating for me. So I feel like there should be a point where he's like, yeah, this stuff is real.
Yeah, like in the other movies, I think he says like I don't believe in magic or stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, you've witnessed all of it.
Yeah, it would have been better if he would have said, I've seen so many things where at this point, everything is probably true.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would make more sense being like, oh, I've seen stuff from like Christianity and voodoo and more Christianity and aliens and Archimedes and time travel. At this point, I feel like he would say, yeah, there's like a mythological story about something. It's probably true in some regard.
Yeah, like any story is like it's just a bedtime story.
At the same time too, like we get to see all the times where it was true, but being an archaeologist, how many times was it not true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you see 1,000 times where it's not, one time that it is.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at math, but
I'm not a mathematician.
1 out of 1,000 is pretty low.
pretty low. Yeah, so we all agree on 5 on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Very strange movie.
I would say you can still enjoy it as a movie.
Yeah.
But like if you compare it to any of the other Indiana Jones movies, like it's the last.
Starting with you, ouch. The rest of your rankings, sir, from 4 to 1.
All right, so I'm gonna put Temple of Doom as my number 4.
Interesting.
I think it's an interesting, fun, but it's very dark compared to the rest of them. Just like the occult aspect, I think that was a Steven Spielberg kind of thing. And then that it's a prequel to the first movie, shown as the second, as a sequel. I think that's kind of it's a little odd, but it kind of like showed his motivations at the start, but none of the other movies, like I guess it explains why he's so much into the history of and not like the fortune and fame anymore. But
Sure.
I think it's just not as it's very dark comparative, and I think the rest of the movies are a little more upbeat and have a little more like better story.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, makes sense.
So third will be Dial of Destiny.
Okay.
Like I said, solid movie, but I think I didn't like the scientific, like science aspect, and they kind of like when they opened up with the spear tip that pierced Jesus, but it's a fake because religion's fake. That's
Yeah.
kind of what the vibe I got from that. Like, it's not real. Science is real.
Yeah, I
Like
see. That
science
makes sense.
is
Mm.
this is something solid. You can believe in it. And it's like, well, there's 2 artifacts that definitely worked.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, 2 of your 5 movies have a religious artifact from the same religion. So
Yeah, the rest are
The rest are
ones.
whatever, yeah.
But it like a solid movie. I think it's great. Second one, I'm gonna put Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Mhm.
I love the movie. It's a great start to it. Kind of like we talked about, it's just kind of his starting, and he doesn't have the family connections just yet, or like these other side characters that he's built these emotional like adventures with, like Solly and Marion and all them. I think it's like a classic story. Great beginning to the series, but the first and my top choice is as the gosh, I almost said it again.
Crusade.
Last Crusade,
Yeah.
yes.
That other one.
The other one, the best one.
The one that's
Last
clearly-
Crusade is just a great story. Adding Sean Connery as his father was an amazing choice.
Yes.
Just a great casting. Bringing back Marion. No, Marion was in Crystal Skull, but the museum
Yes.
guy. I think he was a great character bringing back. Solly was back. So I just like love the cast, love the story, lots of great action, lots of great history. And then it just a fantastic what could have been the end to the series.
Yeah.
With them riding off into the sunset.
I think that was, and after you had the movie before it.
Yeah,
It was
with
like we
the-
can't end it on this
Yeah.
here. It's like
no.
Yeah, I think the full intention was to actually have it be the last,
The Last Crusade.
like the Last Crusade, and then they were like,
Money.
but what if aliens?
Well, what if money?
think we can make money off
Classic.
that. But I will go number 4. I will also do Temple of Doom. Number 3, I will also do The Dial. But my number 2, number 1, I'll switch it. I'll do Last Crusade number 2, Raiders of the Lost Ark number 1,
Mhm.
just because it's such an iconic.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, short, sweet, to the point. I
Oh,
like
yeah.
it. Now, who's ready for hot take time? Because it's my turn.
Oh, he's
All right.
choosing Temple as the
At this
number
point,
one.
I need a sign. Like, I need some sort of sign that's like a warning sign, like warning, like this may offend viewers.
Trigger
I just
warning.
moved your mic. I apologize.
You better be.
So my number 4 is Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't love this movie as much as other people do. It is a classic Indiana Jones story. But when I was rewatching the first 4 in a row, I found myself the least engaged with this movie out of the original 3. Because obviously, like, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is something that like I check out of
Yeah.
every like
Mhm.
20 minutes. But after that, like, I had a hard time getting myself reinvested in the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I don't know why. And I don't know if it's because really the plot doesn't change too much if Indiana Jones isn't there. There's that part, but I think I do like the relationships he built with these people. Love those parts.
Yep.
I don't care so much for the antagonist. I think it's that was like a hurt your neck, Bob, from That was so I think out of all the antagonists, this one is actually my least favorite. That's including Crystal Skull. I think the antagonist for the Lost Ark is very bland. It's just very like, we're German and we want to get the Ark because it has powers. And they don't really go beyond that. And so I don't think the villains are very like, they don't have too much personality other than the fact that they're just Nazis. And
What
so
else
anyways,
do you need?
anyways,
Nazi
sorry.
sympathizer. No.
Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark number 4. That's my hot take. 3, The Dial of Destiny. Same across the board with that. Solid movie. And number 2 is Temple of Doom. I like Temple of Doom. Rewatching the first 4, I actually felt myself really engaged with this movie. It is very dark, but I like it.
Yeah.
I'm a person who kind of is into that kind of stuff. And there are things that like creep me out, things that like almost like not like cringy, but you almost like, it's not scary. It's like things are so gross in the movie that it makes you want to turn away, with like the heart being pulled out and all the bugs and things like that. And the eating, the feast scene.
Yeah.
But that kind of fascinates me.
At the same time, it just like, I think a big reason why I put it so low was just the annoying side character.
Oh yeah,
The female.
Wendy.
Oh,
Yeah.
That
the
is
girl.
typically anything I've seen when I was like researching was like Wendy is one of the most downfall character like aspects in the movie.
I totally understand that. For me, I found it to be more comedic relief. I found it to be kind of like a lighter toned comedy part to a very dark film, and I think that
It did have a weird balance of comedy, the dark.
Yeah, so it's a very strange film, but I'm kind of into strange films.
Like it almost seemed like that one could have been directed by
Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi or
Tim Burton.
not Tim Burton, but sorry, I should remember these names. But,
Is there a movie that comes to
The
mind?
Thing,
Thing?
the director of The Thing, or
I actually don't know that.
Prince of Darkness.
I don't know that actually.
Oh yeah, I don't. Yeah.
That person.
That person. Little Trouble in Chinatown.
Still can't think of it.
Dang. Well, while you continue,
Okay.
I will Google it and
Yeah.
then interrupt you.
So I enjoy Temple of Doom. And even though it is like a prequel, it does have some really interesting things, and it's actually a little bit of a colorful film, and I enjoyed those aspects of it. And there's a lot of heart into it. And Short Round is the GOAT. So number 1, Last Crusade. Last Crusade is awesome. It's introducing his father is, I mean, amazing casting as you said, but he's so funny. Like he's hilarious, and I like them like rebuilding their relationship.
Oh yeah.
And I love like the artifact that they're going to go search for. There's some really cool stuff they do with all like the religious aspects. One of the coolest scenes in all of Indiana Jones films is when he has to make the leap of faith, but it's actually like
A bridge.
a bridge that you have to.
It's just it's just invisible with the cascading like deepness of it, that it just blends into the walls.
Yeah.
Super, super cool. And the choosing of the Grail, super good scene. And actually seeing him, he solves a lot more puzzles in The Last Crusade than he does a lot of other movies. And I really like that.
Yep.
But that's number 1. So.
And
That's my
John
ranking.
Carpenter, that's the director.
John
I was
Carpenter,
thinking of.
that's,
Like Temple of Doom could have been directed by John Carpenter, and I wouldn't have noticed a difference between any of his other movies.
Sure. That makes sense. So here you have it.
Well, there we go.
You have our ratings and our rankings.
And we're a little bit went a little bit longer than normal, but thank you guys for sticking around. Make sure to like, subscribe, share. Anything else before we close out here?
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really enjoyed having you here, and love talking about these movies specifically. And I'm glad that you were able to.
Yeah,
to do
thank
this
you
with
for
us.
having me on. I had a good time. These are like movies I grew up with, like my dad watching.
Yeah.
We'd watch them all with my dad.
Yep.
And then Crystal Skull came out, and then we enjoyed watching the 3 original.
Yeah. the
And then,
3.
I got to watch it with the Dial of Destiny with him as like a Father's Day, late Father's
Cool.
Day present.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just great movies to talk about.
Thanks. Well, we're going to log out here, folks. Thanks for jumping on. Stay classy, Bols.